Morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's session. Today's topic is on year-end reporting for Sage 100 Contractor with presenter Aline Cross. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box, and we will address them at the end of the session. This webinar will be recorded, and we will email out a copy to everyone later today. I will now turn it over to you, Aline.
Thank you, Krista. Good morning and welcome to our year-end webinar. Today's topics, we're going to talk about the supported versions of Sage 100 for this year-end, preparing Sage 100 Contractor for the year-end with audits, calculation settings, the Affordable Care setup, and your backup. We'll show you closing and archiving in both version 19 and the new SQL version 20. We'll go through the Aatrix forms that we have available for federal and state quarterly tax deposits, the W-2 year-end reporting, and 1099 options that are also available through Aatrix. And then we will give you some resources that are available that will add to this information. So to get started, as some of you may already be aware, this is the final year that they're going to update version 19. You may already be working on version 20, which is a SQL version, and using it. If not, you will want to move to this version next year as early as you can. Your consultant can help you with the change if you need it. I'm not going to talk too much about the changes except as it pertains to the year-end information. So some of the new things in Sage 100 Contractor SQL is where you go to, you're going to do the payroll audit in the same place, but when you go to archive your information, that's going to be a little bit different view for you this year. If you are on version 20, you're going to be familiar with this database administrator if you have this permission. And we'll go through the steps in there also. Your fiscal year and payroll year-end archiving will be done in that database administrator. So you want to make sure that you have access to that, and your IT may have to give you permission to that.
Aline, can't hear you. Hey, Aline, we can't hear you. Aline, maybe you could try to reconnect by phone.
I'm sorry, I seem to have gotten disconnected there.
Oh, there you go.
I came back in. My phone just clicked off. So, in preparing for the year-end, with the exception of the backup, the following steps will be the same on either version and consist of basic housekeeping in your accounting program. Your payroll needs to be archived every year. However, your general ledger only has to be archived every other year. Once you advance your general ledger to January, all periods in 2017 will become available. But at this point, they won't. It will, when you go to December, January will become available, but the rest of the periods will still be closed. Most activities for your year-end, including archiving your payroll, will be exclusive access only. And as you enter Sage, you have the change user access. You will want to make sure that it's exclusive, which means that all other users have to be out of the system at that time. You certainly don't want anybody entering data as you're trying to close your year. That would kind of skew your records a little bit. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is the audit. in your Sage 100, both versions, this is the 2016 SQL if you're in here, you will go to your payroll, the 537 window, and run your audit. And again, it looks exactly the same in 2016, 537 audit. It's the same window. You'll hit the audit window. It will show you any errors that you are going to have. I have an uncomputed record in here. That means that I still have something sitting, whether I've started to enter next year, which I don't want to do at this point, or I just forgot to void a record out. It's going to tell me that. Anything unposted, if you have quarter number and check date mismatches, it will tell you that, and it will give you the option to print the report. And it's a very basic report. We just hit yes, and I'm going to do a print preview. It's going to tell me which record number has the error. So I can go in right to that error, that record, and fix that error. So that hopefully is a very simple step for you. If you do have issues that you can't resolve, your consultant is always available to help you with that. Okay. After you run your audit, our next step, we go into our payroll calculations. Oops, sorry. And the only reason we go into the payroll calculations is to make sure that when they were set up, we set up our little boxes down here for W-2 correctly. The primary ones that you're going to be concerned with would be your 401. Anything that comes out of an employee's check really should be shown on the W-2. So you want to make sure that your W-2 box is correct, which in this case it's not because this should be box 12. And the W-2 code be the one that's required by the government to be on that. And in that case, I do provide a list here, and so does Sage. This list is available in your help menu. And these are the different codes that should be in box 12 based on which designation it is. So your Roth is going to be a different number than your 401. Your health insurance is going to be a different code than your, but they all are meaningful. Box 14, which I seem to keep switching to here, are different items that are on, sorry, wrong button. The health insurance, union dues, anything else that you take from a check that you need to report, but it doesn't belong in box 12. So that would be 14. Now the codes here are a little different. You're going to put a word based on what it is. So I would put that this is my union dues, and I would write the word dues so that it shows on the W-2 what it is. And you just save it. So that's a little bit of housekeeping that you want to make sure is done in your 531 window, your calculations. The next thing you want to think about is your Affordable Care Act filing. And this has been required for a couple of years, and Sage has provided the reporting in the program for you. You may want to check with your accountant or your third-party provider or insurance agent to find out what exact reporting requirements you do have. In our program, on the 521 employee window, we do have this Affordable Care Act tab. That's what the ACA is. You will find out your work status, and it will pre-fill across. So if they change mid-year, you can always come in and change their work status. The coverage codes are ones that you will have to find from your insurance company because they're all related to what type of coverage and safe harbor. So you'll want to make sure that this is filled out. If you have self-insurance, then you would fill that out in this part. Okay, the next part of this is the next part that will track your hours is in your your payroll records. As you're entering your time, you've probably seen these boxes here. There's two boxes because if your payroll overlaps a month, it's going to put it in the correct month. So November payroll just ended, but I might be still processing it this week. So anything that's in November will be in this box. Anything in December will be in this box. And that way it makes sure it goes into the right month for reporting. So that's why you have two boxes here. You can pre-fill these hours in here if you want to do it that way, but as you enter hours in your employee, I'm going to make sure I didn't get a startup. If I have hours in my grid down here, it's going to put them up in here, so I don't have to pre-fill those hours. I, of course, pick salary people, so it's not showing. But that's the two requirements for the ACA reporting. As for which forms to file, we have this little chart here, depending if you're self-insured, not self-insured, how many employees you have. All of these forms are available through our Aatrix program in Sage. And there are reporting requirements just like your W-2 as to when they are due. And they're right under your 543, Affordable Care Act reports. Okay. Other information for the Affordable Care Act can be obtained at the irs.gov website that is provided on the prior screen. And you will get a copy of this, so you'll have this accessible to you. The first step before you do anything is you want to make sure to back up. And 19.7, it's a little more difficult to back up. Your IT company probably has a daily backup going for you. Your consultant can show you how to make a copy of your data folder if you don't know how to do that. We don't really suggest that you go in and do this on your own because it is in your server, in your file structure, and you can damage your files. But once you're shown how to do it, it's a fairly easy process. You can back up to a flash drive. You can back up to another folder on your server, but you usually want to keep a backup off-site. Now, with the new version, on when you were set up, it creates a backup file automatically. When we create a new company, it sets up a nightly backup, and it keeps that backup for a couple of weeks. It is saved on your server. You can come into your database administrator and do a backup immediately, and you can also restore from that backup. The files are saved, again, on your server, so they're not off-site anywhere, and you still may want to do that. I can change my backups in here. So this is one of the new features in the new version that will assist you with having that done automatically, so you don't have to remember to go in and do it. So the next part is then closing and archiving. Now we have a little feature in our payroll records that will allow you to see how many records you actually have in here. So you can go to the file. This is in your 522, file count. It's going to show you how many records are in your system. It's a good idea to get that count because then you know when you archive, you go into your archive folder and you can make sure every file moved and that you didn't leave any hanging or open behind. Okay, the next part that will come in is, and again, this works the same way except in a different location. In my 19.7, version 19.7, I'm going to come in on to my 538 to close my payroll year. When I open the 538, I'm not exclusive, so you can quickly change that access right here. And it just, flashes and reopens the program for you, as you may already know. So 538, I'm going to close my payroll year. Now you enter a name for your archive, and the easiest one would be to label it your 2016 payroll archive. Since you're going to do it every year, it helps to have your date up in front. I can include any images I have. If I've scanned in photos of my employees or any of their licenses or things like that, I can include those files over in my archive. I can also remove any of my employees that I'm not going to bring back. If you have laid off ones, you may want to keep them for another year, but I can remove them. I can approve each removal if I want to, or I can just, I already know I'm going to move them so I don't have to look at them. That's just a second glance to make sure you want to remove that one. Then I would come in and I would hit Close Payroll. And then it's always going to give you the reminder of what you're doing. Do you want to continue? Yes. Now, when it says all payroll records will be deleted, what it's telling you is it's going to delete them from your current file. It's moving them into the archive. So you still have those records. You'll go into a different, and I'll show you where to go to access those later. But what it's doing is zeroing out your employee balances so that you can start your new payroll. So I'm going to say yes to this, and it will show you the work-through as it goes through this. And that's it. So now when I go into my history for these employees, there is none. And I'm sorry, I should have shown you that screen first, but as you know, that's the quickest location to go in and look up your employee history is in the 521 payroll record. And it shows my earnings are 0. So now to look at that, I can change my company right here, and I would change to my archives. And there's my 2016 archive. I can open it right here. It will give you a message that it's an archived company, it's not active, and the background changes to remind you that. So if you ever have the pink background, you're working in your archive company. And I come in back into my employees, and it's going to remind me every time. I can turn that message off. I go back to my employee, and there's my records. So you haven't lost anything. You've just moved them out of your live company. So that's the difference, this active and the archives. So in the SQL version now, we're going to go to the database administrator to do those functions. And we're going to just come right in here, right where it says Archive Company Data. And we can do both the fiscal year and the payroll. We're just concentrating on payroll today. So I'm going to go to my Archive Payroll Data. I'm going to grab my company. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to name it the same file. And again, I can pick employees that I want to remove. And I'm going to create my archive. And it's the same exact steps. It's going to tell me the same exact things. Except that I can't do it because I'm connected. So I'm going to just terminate my connections. And what that's telling me is that I actually have the folder open, so it's not going to do it for me right now. I should have closed this first. So again, where you have exclusive access in 19.7, in version 20, you want to make sure that nobody's got the program open. Or we'll keep giving you this warnings before it terminates them. It's giving you a full minute to get out of the program. So I could close it right now and create my archive. And in here again, it gives you the message, it's archiving and closing is complete. Now once I've closed my company and I want to work in my archive, because especially this year, maybe your payroll is going to start right away because January 2nd is the first work day back and it's the beginning of the week. So you may have to do your payroll right away. Archive after your last payroll of the year so that you have this moved out of there so that you can go to work right away in your live company and not worry about this. I'm going to go back in my archive to create my tax reports for the year end. Now, I'm not going to create live payroll in here, but all of my history is in here. So now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to come into Form 1, and some of you may be familiar with this. If you're doing your quarterly filings or your weekly filings through here, I'm going to turn off this reminder so we don't get it all the time. You may already be coming in here doing all your EFTPS, which is your weekly filing, and your 940 and 941 reports. We can also, it's showing the 2015. So once I go to run this, you know it's going to give me that update message if you use this. So if I hit my W2, W3, I'm going to change my year to 2016, and I'm going to hit Run Report. It takes a couple minutes. It's compiling all the information. It's making sure I'm up to date. You want to hit the automatic update, especially every time you're getting ready to file, because if there are any updates to the forms, Aatrix is constantly updating all of this. So at this point, I'm going to continue expired just so we don't take the time to update those forms. It can take a few extra minutes. What it's doing is it's gathering all that payroll information for us. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the screen. So it's telling us going forward, this is stored information. A lot of messages always. It's going to check your changes, anything that's changed or values. And it's important to test drive your W-2s. I don't think you should start processing them until you at least do one test drive. You can do just 25 employees if you want, just to check the columns and what's going on. I would go in and test drive all of my employees, because if any information is missing, you want to go back and fix that information in their records. It goes through the same steps as your 941 and your EFTPS to make sure all your company IDs are correct. Make sure your address is correct and you're filing. Who am I filing for? Unless you're the third party working, you're usually going to be filing for your company or your employer. Here it's going to check my tax numbers. And it's telling me my numbers are incorrect, so it wants me to fix them. And if you have any state filings in here, you will have to make sure that these are in here. I can always move that down, so I'm looking at my state unemployment. All right. Now, if those are set up in your setup window, your 7 company information, most of those will pull in. All your state taxes, your federal tax number will pull in. If you have your state tax ID set up, those should pull in from your 7-2 company setup window. It's going to ask me, because it's a Pennsylvania, and if you're in Pennsylvania, you're aware of the your tax collection agencies. It's a little bit different filing in Pennsylvania for your local taxes. And I'm just going to say no, required field. Hold on. Oh. Okay, the next question is, do you have any employees who are exempt from Medicare? Do you have any employees that earn Social Security tips? Do you want to use control numbers on your W-2s? And do you have any employees elected that have elected to receive W-2s forms electronically? That's a newer setting in our system that you can put on the employee record if they want to choose, if they choose to accept them electronically. This is where you would put the control number. Now, what kind of taxpayer are you? You should be a 941 filer. If you have any employees with third-party sick pay, you would want to check this off, and it will show the taxes that were withheld on their third-party sick pay. The rest of this you can just skip over unless you have other EINs used this year. An establishment number, if you have various establishments, you would put those. If your business terminated this year, you can check that box. We'll skip through them. In our case, we only use a single payroll data file, which, as you saw, was my 2016 year-end company file. If you have multiple companies and multiple data files, you would check yes. So now it's processing the forms for us. And while it does that, we'll catch back up on the PowerPoint. I did provide little screenshots of those. I didn't show you in detail all of them. This is what we're looking for, the result of our processing. And I believe I might have closed it. Okay, it didn't close. It hides when it's working in the background. You can see it's so. Anything that's in red has to be corrected. What it's doing is it's got all your employees, it's got their federal wages. Some of these columns over here are unassigned, and that means that it might be something over in those W-2 boxes where I said that box 12 and the box 14 has to be filled in. It's also going to pull in information that doesn't have to be reported on the W-2, and it will give you the name of that column. So you can say, do I need to show that on the W-2 or not? I'm not sure where my form went, but it's hiding. You're in test drive mode. So I have a little question in the background that I had to come and find that's going to tell me I'm in test drive mode. So I'm going to tell it OK. So this is what I was talking about, the form. If I had somebody's Social Security number wrong, then it would tell me that. If all these boxes over here are unassigned, do I need to show my state disability? I probably do want to show it. And I could name it right here on the form. Now, naming it on the W-2 form here is not going to name it back in my 531 window. So now I'm going to want to remember, okay, I took some state disability insurance out of my employees. I need to go back and mark that box so I don't have to fill this in every year. And it's limited to 8 characters, so I would just call it SDI. Domestic relations doesn't go on the W-2, so I don't have to worry about that. My 401 here, this plan seems to be unlabeled, so this is going to be a 12. Now you can see everything's coming up for me, so I don't have to go anywhere else and look it up. But again, it's only doing it on this run of the form. It won't change it permanently. So I would go through all of these steps, and then I would come up here and hit my next step. Now I'm getting a warning to fix the errors in red. Social Security number cannot begin with a 9. So I can go back and correct it, and I know that I've done a typo on this person's record. Again, this is going to change the W-2 form. I still need to go back to Daisy Duck's 521 employee file and fix her Social Security number, or the next time I run this, it's going to be wrong. And as you go through, it's just verifying information if they belong in the retirement plan. This is also set up on their employee record. Are they part of the retirement plan? Do they have third-party sick pay? All these boxes are going to pre-fill from there. It just performs an error check, and it's verifying if there's Social Security tips. And it tells you all along what it's doing up here. Now it's verifying my state wages. Unassigned columns, it's going to verify. And it's telling me that I have other columns that are unassigned. Do I want to leave them there? So I can go back and correct them, or I can continue without correcting. Now in this case, I'd already gone through and I knew domestic relations is not one. I should assign the 401, but we're just going to continue at this point. Now here's your offer by Aatrix to file electronically through them. You can enroll at this time, or you can just skip it. You can complete e-filing, and there's your rates, or I can just come over here and print. And these are the different forms I can print. My employee, again, I can e-file, but I'm going to skip and I'm going to just print. And you hit next, and it's going to offer me again, and I want to continue without e-file services. Now, divider sheets, do I want divider sheets in? Usually don't. A divider sheet is going to put a blank page between each form. And if I want to print a copy, what this is asking me right here is, do I want to print a copy of this little window right here? What this little window is going to give me a piece of paper that has these listed, and I can put it on top of my forms if I want to make sure I printed all the copies. But that's really all it's going to print right there. And now again, I am still in the test version, so even though it's going to print them, it's going to show me what it's going to print. And here's my forms. Now, the new version of forms is to get a perforated 4-part form. You can order these from Sage. Blank form. It's just a blank piece of paper with the 4 sections. The system fills in all the information. So that may be news to some of you that have always had the form pre-filled and you just have to fill in the blanks. This is actually a blank white piece of paper that you will. And I'm not going to print it now. And it goes through the different ones. You can always see at the top here. I'm on now Report 2, which is my federal W-2. The same thing. As long as you're printing on the perforated paper, the 2-part paper, this is accepted by the IRS. It does not have to be read any longer the way it used to be. And I'm not going to print my federal. And here's my W-3, which is the cover sheet for your W-2 forms. And that should be included with your filing. And I can set up my e-file, but I'm not going to. So, and those are the steps for filing your federal forms. The next part would be your state forms. Now, depending on what state you're in, these forms are going to be different. New Jersey, it's going to list all of your 500, your 927s, which you may already do, and your W-3 form. New York, you have different form numbers. Pennsylvania, and again, every state is going to be different. So I'm not sure what state everyone's from, but I'm in Pennsylvania, so I'm going to work from here. The Act 32 report, that's your local payroll tax for Pennsylvania. You have your PAW3, which is your federal, your state reporting for your W-2 forms is your W-3. They run the same way. I could go through all the steps again, but it's all the same. And I don't have any Pennsylvania payroll in here, so it's not going to report it. But it's all the same steps, just like we went through with the W-2s. You can always print the test forms the same way. All right, that was the correction and the filing and the print options and the final version of the form. So now we're going to move on to the 1099s. Now the 1099s are run from your vendor records. There's a couple of things that I recommend for your before you run your 1099s. We're going to come up to the accounts payable. Now we would jump in and do the 4-5, but before I do that, I want to run a report. And under your 411 in my vendor list, I have down here report number 61 is my 1099 report. Now, it's going to show me what companies I have, what type of 1099 form they get, that I have their tax ID, and what I paid them this year. You want to run this beforehand and make sure your all your subcontractors at the very least are on here that you have to file a report with. Something else I may do at this time of year is I may go to 416. Sorry, I'm going to go out of here for a minute. Under 416, my vendor documents, I have an expired certificates letter. I can send that out to anyone I know that has an expired certificate. And if you have your vendors flagging, you'll know off and on where those are. You can do it as they come up, or I can come back in, and I should have showed you this before, but under here I have an insurance report, my 41441, and I have noted these all in the PowerPoint also. I have no insurance reporting to do in this company at this time. So if I had my insurances set up on my vendor records, which I apparently don't, I would get a report that would show me the expiration dates on that, and it would show me the expired ones. I can also condition it to show me if it expires by this date. So I can get a report, and it's just some file maintenance to do, you know, to check your compliance. It's a good time to do it when you're getting ready to send out your 1099s, because you can let them know, you know, you need a current insurance certificate. Running your 1099s is a few steps simpler than running your W-2s. We're going to do the miscellaneous 1099. Now, I'm going to go back to 2014 because, as you saw, it's an older database that I'm using here. So we're going to run the report. I'm going to continue expired for now. Again, I do recommend, and it knows I'm in the wrong year, so it's going to flag me on that. And I'm going to test drive. I'm filing for my company again. Now, in this case, I don't have my state and local because I don't have those on 1099s. I only have those on my employees. So it's going to kind of skip right over this information. It's asked me, do I want to truncate or put asterisks for the employer identification number? And I'm just going to keep going with it. Takes a couple minutes again. And again, I'm in test drive, so it's going to flag me on that. So it's going through the same grid for the most part, but again, I don't have all the other information I need. You're really just reporting wages to the subcontractor. So it's going to go through verifying if I have all my federal employee numbers and information in place. It's going to do the error check. It's going to verify names and addresses, all income boxes, my filing state, and the amounts. If there's any state income tax withheld, you would put that. So one or more of the filing states requires a state account number, but I'm going to continue without correcting it. Same steps, you know, do you want to have Aatrix do it? We're going to just go to print, and we're going to uncheck the e-filing. And I'm not going to put divider sheets in again. And here's your little sheet that what's going to print for us. And again, it will go through all of your versions of what I'm going to print. Now, in this case, I have report 1 of 3. And again, you're getting the 4-part form. It's going to be blank. Do I want to print it? I'm going to not print it again. You get the back side of the form or the instructions and the taxpayer copy. And that concludes my test drive. And that's all there is to printing the 1099s. Again, go through and verify all your information. There's a couple of housekeeping steps you want to do on your vendor record prior to that. When you come into your vendor record, you want to make sure that you have the federal ID number and what type of filer they are, or if they don't get a 1099. Typically, your subcontractors or people that you're sending 1099s are going to be a miscellaneous 1099. If you pay interest to anybody, then that will be an interest or rent, but and sole proprietor would be the other. But typically, if you have them set off as miscellaneous, unless they're interest, that's the form they should get. Okay. So again, the form, the steps. So some of the resources that I mentioned at the beginning, Sage City is a very helpful resource. It has a lot of information. You can sign up with your Sage user information. It's a lot of users in there. There's a whole section on the Affordable Care Act. There are steps for year-end closing. This Sage Knowledge Base is a place to look up answers to questions. You log in again. You'll sign up for it's the primary user on your Sage account, whoever's email address that is, and then you can get a login information. The knowledge base is very helpful for just random questions that you have that aren't in our help menu. And sometimes it directs you to a page in the manual, and sometimes it just has questions or support information. Sage University has many learning opportunities. You can sign up for classes through there. If it's just something you want to look a little bit more into, a little more deeply, you can go in and sign up for like 1-hour classes in there. And as usual, your consultant is always available. If you don't have one assigned to you, you can call the accordant main number and they will assign a consultant to you. And now we'll take any questions.
Okay, we have some questions here. How would you enter the employee deduction for health insurance premiums? Box 12, question mark. That was in the beginning.
Okay. So when you set up a calculation in the 531, it's the employee health insurance is one of yours, which I don't seem to have employee health insurance. So we'll use the United Way Fund, same type of thing. You would come down here and if you put the box 14, I don't have a code here, so I would put probably health or health insurance, whatever identification you would have for that. You save it. Now, if it's on the employee record under their calculations that they have that, it's going to automatically pull all that information in here. So you have your information set up on your employee record with that they are part of that calculation. And then you make sure the calculation has that designation, and it will automatically fill. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Next question is there a way to get an employee's wages for a fiscal year instead of having to do 2 separate reports?
The employee wages for a fiscal year? I'm not sure what you mean by 2 separate reports. All of our reports, you can do You can run a payroll check register by employee.
He's saying 10/1/2015 to 9/30/2016.
No, there is not. I'm sorry, but once it's archived, the information is not available in the current.
Okay, the next question is, when is conversion to SQL version required? Our company has never received the upgrade notice.
It would be prior to the end of 2017. The version 19.7 is still supported through 2017. This will be the last update you receive, your year-end update, but it is supported through 2017. So if you haven't received it yet, you may want to contact it. They should all be coming out before the end of this year, but if you haven't received it, you may want to find out where you are on the from Sage.
Okay, the next question is, should I update to version 20 before the end of the year?
At this point, I would wait until the end of the year. I would get my filings done. If you're on a fiscal year 12/31, I would wait till the year closes. It's an easy update, but at the same time, it's a risky time to do any major update.
Okay, the next question is, in payroll and year-end, what if you are continuing to use an outside payroll service for checks, tax reporting, and year-end W-2s?
If you're not putting any of your payroll data through Sage, you don't really have to do anything in here. If you are linking to it, then you still want to go through the steps of closing, archiving.
Oh, there was another part of the question, but want to use time cards and calculations to generate number.
Then, yes, then you're basically using the system when you're doing that, even though you're not doing all the reporting. So you still want to clear that out for year end. So you will still go through these steps.
Okay, next question is, how do I get the year-end update?
It should have come to the main email contact person that Sage has on file. And also,
if it didn't, they can contact Sage, right?
Yes. If you go in, there's a little Sage updater over on your server, and it should be in there. I don't see it on mine right now, of course. But under in here, there's a little note updater, Sage updater. If you're on version 20, and I closed all of those files, so they take a little bit to open, in your database administrator, you can run it right from in there. Under your upgrade company databases, it will be in there on version 20. On prior versions, there should be a little icon on your server that accesses the updater.
Has the update already been sent out?
I don't believe it has. It should be coming any day, but I have not received it.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. Next question is, so you would say to do your payroll closing and then before you start anything new in the year 2017, then upgrade to 20.3?
Yes, that would be a good time if you have time before your first payroll. But otherwise, it transfers all of your information. So even if you have to get started in 19.7 and you want to give it a couple of weeks, you can also work in version 20.3. You can update or you can import your 19.7. One of the things is to migrate your version 19.7. So you can migrate and you can work on both for a while as you get comfortable in 23 and still stay in 19.7. And then after a couple of weeks, if you feel really good, then migrate again. It will have to come in as a new name. So maybe you're going to migrate, rename it, and then migrate your other one. All of these are easily done in the database administration. So I'm going to migrate my 19.7. I'm going to rename it. Like you know, we always start with a sandbox, so maybe I'm going to call it my 20.3 sandbox. I might want to continue in 19.7 a little bit as I get familiar with 20. But like I said, there's not that many changes that it would be that difficult to transition. All your reports will also migrate, any custom reports.
Okay, and also what about for fiscal year companies? When would be a good time to update?
Again, it would be an easy matter to do it. I would finish my payroll year and then migrate at any time in January.
Okay, it looks like that's all the questions we have. If you do have other questions, you can always email us after the webinar, and we'll be happy to help you out. So we want to thank everyone again for attending today's session. We will email out the recording of the webinar later today to everyone. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.